Welcome agents. Today I want to talk about hunters within the Division 2. Who sent them? What is their mission? And last, but probably the most important question, who are they? These are the questions I want to discuss today, because it's very likely they will return in the Division 2, albeit not confirmed, and if they do, we will probably get to learn a lot more about them. If you enjoyed this video, please do not hesitate to hit the like button below. If we can hit 200 likes again, that'll be truly awesome, and with that said, let's get into this. Okay agents, so if you didn't know, I'm very much a Division lore noob, and I've had to do a lot of research for this one because I've not collected and listened to all of the audio logs within the Division or read any of the lore behind the hunters until this video. Now from what I've researched, it appears that there is very little information about the hunters from any sources, which is a little creepy when you consider they were brought into the game when Survivor was released and are by far the most ruthless, well-equipped enemy we've had to face as second wave agents. So I think it's worth looking at all the most plausible theories floating around the internet about the hunters, and then from there we can try and tie this into what we know about the Division 2 so far and perhaps come up with a good guess. And it will be a guess. So let's start off with the first theory. Hunters are Russian spies. Now I noticed this theory pop up numerous times on forums, and it's a pretty good one actually. The theory is that Vitaly Chernenko, a Russian virologist who stayed at the Russian consulate, contacted the Russian government to make a deal. He would exchange all of the information he had on the green poison, or you may know it as the dollar flu, for an extraction out of the city. As the poison was a global pandemic, the Russians needed all of the information they could to help them develop a cure, so they accepted Chernenko's offer and sent hunters to the US to collect Chernenko, but they were too late. Chernenko was kidnapped by the LMB under command of Arenkina when they stormed the Russian consulate. Once this was reported back to the Russian government, they ordered all of the hunters to take out all first and second wave agents in an attempt to extract as much information as possible on the whereabouts of Arenkina and ultimately the whereabouts of Vitaly Chernenko. Now with this in mind, there are a couple of reasons why this theory is not as strong as some of the other theories floating around. Firstly, in the Chernenko audio logs, they confirm that Russia retreated heavily following the outbreak of the virus, or flu, as this had become a global pandemic, with some of Russia's biggest cities being affected, i.e. Moscow for example. It wouldn't make much sense for the Russians to invest so much of their resources into locating Chernenko when these resources could be useful on home soil. Secondly, and with the first point in mind, it's likely that the Russians didn't need Chernenko, as Gordon Amherst, the individual who created the green poison, as it's sometimes referred to, went to Russia to study as they are the only other country with samples of smallpox. In fact, Chernenko and Amherst first met in a lab in Russia, so it's likely that Russia already has their own research anyway on a cure. All in all, it doesn't seem plausible that Russia would spend so much time and resources when they would be more focused on trying to contain and control the virus on the home front. For that reason, I would also have to say that it's not plausible for Russian government to have sent hunters just to destabilise what remains of the US either. If Russia lose their motherland, then what good does it do if the US crumble as well? You always protect home first. Hunters are former first wave agents loyal to Arenkina. This theory came up a lot when researching for this video. So we know that Arenkina has a draft for the green poison, or a blueprint if you want to call it, which he obtained from Amherst's apartment, and he also has Chernenko, who has possible knowledge of a cure. Of course, Kina would want a cure to protect himself and anybody who was loyal to him, and with the antivirals potentially giving anyone access to them some significant information towards making a cure, it would make sense that Arenkina would want to protect these as best as possible. In particular, if the SHD were to get the antivirals and create a cure, this would significantly reduce the threat of Kina's plans to weaponize the dollar flu, which by the way is likely to be the story for the Division 2. So the hunters are basically elite agents loyal to Arenkina to protect the antivirals and keep Kina's plans alive to weaponize the green poison and hold a huge leverage over the world. So this theory is a very good one and does make sense. However, I do have one reservation. The hunters are clearly much more advanced than the first wave agents and the second wave agents, which with much better technology, gear and weapons. And it hasn't been that long for them to get that much better. I'm sure the hunters are not first wave agents, but it is possible they are still part of the SHD. The Hunters are third wave agents. Now, this has to be my favourite theory of the lot. In the Division, we play as the second wave agents, activated to find out what happened to the first wave agents and continue with the goal of restoring order in Manhattan. Once the second wave agents found out about the treason of the first wave agents, the government got nervous, worried that the second wave agents would follow suit under the leadership of Arankina, one of their own. Now, the risk was much greater than it was before, so in order for the government to manage this risk, they activated the third wave, Hunters. These agents are trained and equipped to hunt and destroy first wave and second wave agents, or any SHD agents. Once the government had left everyone to fend for themselves, the Hunters are sent in to clean up, with no one there to witness the truth. This theory seems the most probable to me, and would tie in with the story the best as well. The Hunters are ruthless and brutal, using a pickaxe to slay the agents, which could be a way to point blame away from the government and more towards the hostile factions as the responsible party. The Hunters also collect agents' watches, suggesting that they are doing everything they can to not let any information out about the government's failing to contain the virus. Now, if you've read the book New York Collapse, you may remember that it hints at a division within the Division. And this is interesting because it suggests that there are multiple divisions within the SHD. Could this be referring to the first, second and third wave agents? It's entirely plausible. Now, you have to think of this theory from the perspective of the government. It's all about risk management, and it's very likely the government would have a contingency plan should the second wave agents go rogue, along with the first wave agents, and they are the Hunters. Okay, so now that we've looked at the three most popular theories about the origins of the Hunters, I think it's briefly worth talking about the Division 2 story, which we have no information on about right now. Regardless, I think the Division 2 story will be a continuation of the first, and I think we will have to find Arankina before he manages to weaponize the green poison. Washington DC, being the home of the White House and the President, is the perfect location for Arankina to take control and threaten the world. If we take the second theory I mentioned, which talks about the Hunters being essentially bodyguards of the antivirus who are loyal to only Arankina, we could see a storyline where we come face to face with the Hunters and possibly a lead Hunter before fighting Arankina. And that's where we learn about them and their story. We may even be able to convince them to side with us in the end, and they may aid in the fall of Arankina, who knows. Or what about if the Hunters appear after the main story campaign, once the dust has settled, and fulfill their role as Russian Special Forces, the Bodark? If you've played Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, you will surely know what I mean, and there's no denying both the Hunters and Bodark have similar emblems and could be explained within Tom Clancy's world. What would their storyline be at this point? Well, it could be just like the Russian theory explained, except once we stop Arankina, Hunters swoop in and extract Chernenko before we manage to. This will take the story and location to Russia, if there is a Division 3. Some Hunters would stay behind in the US to protect the Russian interests. These are just some ideas, and I'm sure you agents can think of a lot more than me, so let me know in the comments down below. What story do you think the Hunter has, and how will it fit into the Division 2 storyline? I'd love to read your comments below, guys, so please, get down there, get involved. With everything I've spoken about in mind, there are a lot of good theories out there, and I've simply picked the most possible in my opinion, and the most popular. At this point, we don't know what the Division 2 story will entail, but I'd have to guess that Arankina finds his way to Washington DC and takes the President hostage. Our assault on the White House and victory will see Arankina captured or killed, like Summer out of White House Down with Gerald Butler. I also expect there will be a cliffhanger at the end, in case the Division 2 is so popular the devs go on to make the Division 3. If this were to be the case, I really think the devs will take the story abroad, and we could be fighting in Moscow or London or another major city. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wait until March next year, and even then, we may not see the Hunters introduced until a later date, likely with the release of Survival 2.0, but I am optimistic the devs have thought it through. I really hope they weren't just an addition to the Division to make content more varied or harder, and we do get all of our questions answered. With that in mind, we have come to the end of the video. I do hope you enjoyed this one, and as always, your support is truly appreciated. I encourage you all to leave a comment below and subscribe if you enjoy consistent Division content. And I just want to let you know that hopefully I will be streaming very shortly. I will definitely be streaming for the Division 2. And once I start that, then I would highly encourage you guys to check out my stream, which I will cover on YouTube and on Twitch as well. With that said, until the next one, Epic out.